or Mr.
Yes,
Ashish?
yes, I'd like to start.
Yeah.
So, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow digital netizens. I'm very happy to host this very first digital webinar for the Industry Committee of the Indian Merchant Chambers. Indian Merchant Chambers is very well known to you all, since I see a lot of familiar faces. And I'm very happy that we have with us two distinguished speakers who will talk to us today. These are very trying times, and as you know, change is inevitable. The topic of today, impact of COVID-19 on the production cycles and the changing behavior patterns, is so very apt, since it's adversely affecting all of us since over a month. And as things have it, it will affect for at least next 2-3 quarters, maybe 1 year. And I leave our distinguished speakers to talk about it. We have with us Mr. Raj Nair, who is a very well-known personality at the Indian Merchant Chambers. He has been our president of the chamber in 2018 and 19. Mr. Nair has set up 4 very highly professional service companies under the Avalon Group, with having offices in almost 16 countries, or 16 offices in a couple of countries, including the US, the UK, Singapore, and Australia, which is known for in the areas of innovation, quality, and creative use of technology. Mr. Nair is a BTech honors from IIT Mumbai and holds a postgraduate degree in business management from the IIM Ahmedabad. He was recently also awarded Distinguished Service Award by IIT Mumbai. Mr. Nair has developed lectures in many national and international conferences spread across USA, UK, and Singapore on subjects as diverse as global economics to impact of technologies on business, entrepreneurship, and education. So Mr. Nair will speak about his thoughts on the production cycle, and he will share some screens. His talk will be around 20 minutes, after which we will have Mr. Atul Joshi speak for another 15 minutes. Mr. Joshi is also very well known to us. He was formerly the managing director of Fitch India, which has a checkered history in the Indian financial markets. A CA by qualification, Mr. Joshi is a regular at the discussion panels at the various electronic media, and he's an expert speaker on economy and finance at various forums. He has been associated with IMC Chamber and has been a key advocate of the Chamber's view to the government on various subjects like GST, on policy issues, be it monetary, be it fiscal policy with the RBI. He has also presented to the finance minister a very influencing white paper on taxation of agricultural income in India. He has been a lead member of identifying the companies for the IMC constituted Wealth and Value Created Awards, the first of its kind to recognize the wealth and value creators in the industry segments. He's currently the chairman of the Economic Policy Committee of the Chamber, and he's also a member of the Industry Committee. With this, I welcome both our distinguished speakers. As I mentioned, Mr. Joshi will talk about the behavior changes, how we look at life in general, our buying patterns, the way business is run, and things.
Sorry.
So with this, I give the chair to I welcome both the speakers, welcome you all, and I'd like Mr. Nair to take over from here. Thank you. Selvi, could you unmute?
Yeah.
Just one more thing, post the presentations, we will have in the last 15 to 20 minutes, we will have question and answers, which I would request everybody to be brief and open it up. Mr. Nair, please.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah. Sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, good evening to everybody. I'm very happy that so many of you have gathered here today. I think this whole COVID thing has struck us like a bolt out of the blue and has caught us all unprepared and in some sense defenseless because we still don't have a cure or a vaccine to prevent. What I'm going to try and do is try and explain what will be the impact of this COVID-19 led lockdown on the entire Indian industry, Indian business. So normally if someone says, can you tell me how can we determine whether a particular human being is likely to survive the corona crisis? One would look at three things. The first thing you would look for is whether the person's immune system is strong enough to withstand the blow or the onslaught of COVID virus. Second, you'd see whether the person has got generally decent health and that there are no underlying problems like a pulmonary problem or a cardiac problem or diabetes or whatever it is. This is well known. And the third thing is that you try and see whether the person is living in a highly infected area, a red zone or whatever it is, and therefore there's a greater chance of getting infected. So these are three criteria you'd look for. We use exactly the same criteria for trying to determine how will it be for companies. So in the case of companies, we looked at the immune system being the cash resilience of the company. In the case of companies, we said the health, the general health parameters can be determined by the profitability. And whether the person is living in the wrong place is determined by which sector the company is in. Okay, so the same three broad parameters, but the metrics used are different. In the case of cash resilience, we try and see how much cash and cash equivalents do we have divided by the fixed costs the company incurs per year. And that helps us to understand how long can you carry on without revenue to pay for your fixed costs. The second parameter metric would look for is the debt equity ratio. If you're highly leveraged, it can get knocked down by a very small impact on revenue. But if you're under leveraged or very decently leveraged, then the chances are that it could even borrow in case you need more money. And third factor we're looking at, or third metric we're looking at, is earnings before interest and tax divided by interest, because that shows whether you are in a comfortable position to at least repay interest, if not the principal, because not paying interest is a cardinal sin, as most of the people in the business know. So this is the immunity factors. The profitability or the general health factors would be the earnings before interest, tax and depreciation and amortization, and the return on capital employed. So it shows how profitable is a business been in the last 12 months, and therefore how are you placed today. The sector impact is, depending on which sector you are, your revenue can be impacted to a small extent or to a very large extent. And depending on which sector you are, it will take a few quarters or a lot of quarters to recover. So these are the parameters we used, and we have done it on more than 1,500 companies in India. So when I say when I've done on 1,563 companies, it means that if you do an 80-20, this represents India Incorporated. Now, even if your company or your business, however big or small, whether these companies are covered in the 1563 or not, you can use the same framework to try and stress test your own companies and see what are the chances of your coming out unscathed, or if there's going to be a problem, what are the things you can do. It's good to know now. It's good to know now than later. Okay, so I would urge you all to use the framework to understand where does your business stand. We don't know yet, have your data. If you had it, it would have been in the 1563, but you check it yourself and see where do you stand. So that's our Avalon pandemic test. Now, what does the test reveal? It shows that as far as cash resilience is concerned, I think 55% of companies are in a decent position. It's the smaller companies which are slightly more stressed than the medium and large, as you can see from the graph. The ones which, the large companies, you find that 61 or 65% of the companies are in fairly decent shape. And in the case of small companies, it's a almost equal. But so that's not too bad. Then what's bad? But when you look at profitability, which is measured in terms of EBITDA below 15% and return on capital employed below 18%, you find that only 1 out of 5 companies in India, 1 out of 5 companies in India are in a decent shape to withstand the fury of this virus. So that's not a good thing to do. See, now you might ask, why are you using such a high threshold of 15% EBITDA and 18% ROS? Well, I'm telling you that you're trying to stress test your business. In normal times, this should be very good numbers. In times like this is what you must have if you want to see whether you're strong enough. So it's not an aspersion on your company, but it's about the ability to withstand these huge dips that are happening. So if you've got a return capital employed of less than 18% and EBITDA of less than 15%, you should not be too complacent. That's my main point. And only 1 in 5 companies is in that good, happy situation. Now let's move on to the third thing about which sector you are in. See, only 1% of the companies in this whole sample, which represents, as I said, India Incorporated, is in a situation where their revenues might actually go up and not go down. So these are the telecom sector and the companies in that ecosystem of broadband or home entertainment like OTT, Netflix, Alt Balaji and companies like this. They're benefiting. That's 1% of the companies in India. But 70% of the companies are going to be impacted to a medium extent or a high extent. And simultaneously, so what I mean by impact is that 70% of the companies will see a revenue dip of more than 25% and simultaneously have 2 quarters, it will take at least 2 quarters, longer than 2 quarters to recover from this. So when I say more than, the revenue dip will be more than 25%, there are cases where it will be 70%. When I say it's going to take more than 2 quarters, there are some companies which are going to take 8 quarters to recover. So I don't know what some people are talking about in the press and on TV about a V-shaped recovery. I think they're smoking pot. If you look at hard numbers, you can see that you can't see a V-shaped recovery. Okay. So now it's one thing to say, let me look at the cardiogram, let me look at the temperature, let me look at this and let me do that. But what's the combined effect of all this? The combined effect of these 3 things together is what I'll try and explain now. So you can see a rectangular chart with 9 cells. On the horizontal axis, you'll see sector impact, low, medium, high. So if
Hello, Mr. Nair.
You can't hear, right?
Yeah, no, his video is frozen. I think he's lost connectivity. Hello,
Should I call him on the phone?
I'm just trying. Yeah, I think he's gone out. He'll be joining back, I suppose.
So on a lighter note, what Mr. Raj Nair was saying, EBITDA, I don't know if you all seen this WhatsApp going around. So they say earning before interest, tax, depreciation, and now before Corona. So there's a C added in that formula. So that's on a lighter note I just wanted to share with you all. But he's absolutely right. And the sectors, and today you all saw this fantastic Reliance deal. My God, Facebook has given Jio 50,000 crores. My God, that was a mind-boggling deal. And I don't know what it's going to come out. I think he's finished.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Raj, I just.
Yes, yes. Hello? Hello? Mr. Nair?
No,
Hello?
I don't think he can hear us still.
No, he's not come. His screen has just come.
Okay.
Okay. I think his internet is a problem today.
Everyone's has. It's really
Yeah.
rubbish internet and rubbish mobile. I think it's time we
No. The
Mentions-
problem, no, the problem now currently people face is because almost everybody are doing VCs and online
Atul bhai
deals,
wants to say something.
Yeah, sir.
I think Mr. Nair is speaking because he's changing the slides. So, we may want to call him on the
I'll
cell.
call him,
Yeah.
I think he's muted. He's muted.
Yes.
No, he's not. One
He's
minute.
changed the slide. He's changed the slide.
Selvi,
Yeah,
unless
yeah,
you,
yeah.
now you are unmuted.
Yeah.
I was
I'm
trying to
able
tell you that you have muted me
Okay.
by mistake.
He lost
Therefore, I
the-
cannot speak.
No,
Okay.
when you just
Fine.
disconnected and then
Yeah.
come back, no, it's a
He
new
didn't come
state.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next time I get disconnected, please put mute
Yes,
me.
yes,
Unmute
yes.
me.
Yeah, sure.
So what we're seeing is that the topmost layer is a layer of companies where either the cash resilience is low or the profitability, one of the two. Whereas the middle layer had both bad and the bottom layer had both good. Okay, so now what happens is, if you look at this carefully,
Can't hear.
I'm not able to move it.
No, we're not able to hear you also sometimes.
I'm able to hear him properly.
Okay.
So just share it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we able to see the screen.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're able to see the screen.
Yes. But it's not on the presentation mode. Yeah, perfect.
So what you now you look at the red dotted line, which covers 4 cells. What it shows that 950 companies out of the 1530, or in other words, 61% of the sample will face a high or medium impact on revenue. So either stressed on cash and profitability, or stressed on both cash and profitability. So these are companies, that means we are saying 60% or 61% of India Incorporated is going to face serious problems. Now, in our actual detailed report, which can be made available to everyone, we have the names of individual companies in each of these cells. Okay, so the objective is not to read out the names of companies, but the objective was to show you that different companies fall in different cells and their solutions for them are different. What you will also notice is that only 7% of the companies are in a happy situation where the revenue impact is low. At the same time, their profitability is high and their cash resilience is high. So there are only 103 companies in that category. 103 companies out of the total sample, that's 7%, which are in that happy shape. And there is, as I said earlier, these are mostly in the home entertainment and broad other kind of things, which are in that same ecosystem. Now, you might want to know which kind of companies and which sector. Okay, if you look at the companies which are going to get less affected, that which will recover in 1 or 2 quarters, and whose impact on revenue will be less than 25%. They are mostly FMCG, agri-businesses, e-commerce, education, media, packaging, paper. They will recover rather quickly. Pharmaceuticals. In medium, impact will be apparel and textiles, building and construction. I can see Ashish looking intently. Chemicals, gems and jewelry, leather, and so on and so forth. And the ones which are going to take a real beating and will take a long time to recover also, auto ancillaries, aviation, capital goods, consumer durables, because many people postpone such purchases, metals and metal products, real estate, which I mean infrastructure and things like that. So unless the government pumps in a lot of money into real estate, that's going to take a long time. Its impact will be high. So we've got some generic solutions for all companies and some specific solutions. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, foremost, forget about chasing profitability. Your job is to conserve cash. So you have to have a weekly cash budget and a daily cash monitoring. That's the way you'll run your companies, not by looking at profit, because the moment you focus on profitability, you'll be chasing the wrong metrics and you'll suddenly find that you'll neither have profit nor any cash. The second thing to do is to cut your fixed cost to the bare bone so that when you recover, you'll recover fast. The next thing is that some of your supply chains would be broken. It's important that you should recognize that some members or some vendors in your supply chain may never open again. In the 2008 crisis, 5 million businesses went out of the business across the world. Even in USA, 170,000 SMEs closed for good. You're going to see that also this time. So retool your, look at your supply chain. If you have some vendors which are weak, help them, because there are some groups in India, for instance, which have decided that instead of paying everybody in 30 days, the weak vendors they're paying in 15 days, and the rest they're paying in 45 to 90 days. Then the last thing is you have to retool your business for the new order. Assess the impact of social distancing as a norm, because it's not going to go away very fast. You have to make changes. Some of your customers may not be relevant to you anymore, or you may not be relevant to them. The offerings might be different. So these are some of the generic things that have to be done. Then there are certain specific things. So look at the same 3x3 chart. The companies in the lowest layer, they should be right now pursuing market share because they've got cash and their sector impact may not be high, and support critical vendors and customers. Some Tata Group companies are already doing that. If you are in the middle layer, where you got low cash, low profitability and low cash resilience, both are a problem, quickly start raising capital. Don't wait, because if you wait too long, there'll be too many people rushing for it. You'll need to see where you can get capital from, whether it's from banks or from friends and relatives, from whatever source. You have to explore partnerships because you're not strong enough to do it, on your own. You might find mergers or just partnerships or alliances. And you'll have to review a customer mix. As I said, not all customers will need you in the future, or not all customers will be profitable for you. So look at that right now and watch the game as you proceed. And if you're in the topmost layer where you have only cash resilience is low or profitability is low, not both, then you have to focus on key customers. Just try and see how do you retain your market share. Here too, you'll have to raise capital, because retaining market share. Yeah.
No.
Retaining market share would also mean raising capital. So these are the kind of specific solutions. But more than this, I would say that it's important that the government now steps in, understanding the seriousness of the situation, and comes up with some packages, not just to support companies, but also to see how to revive the economy in a sensible way. What we have done is, there has to be a sensible way of opening up the economy. It cannot be just, okay, let's open up everything and then let health suffer. We cannot say, let me be very careful about health and keep a lot of red areas, and then extend this up to September. Then we are dead. We'll become a basket case. So we have done a separate study where we have looked at and many non-essential commodities, and studied their supply chain and which companies are in their supply chain. So each company, we studied their supply chain, and then using geospatial location, we have identified where these suppliers are and created a database. So it's a huge database, more than 27,000. Separately, we have done an analysis of the COVID incidents. When the COVID problem started, the government did a very sensible thing. They did 80-20. They said all districts which account for 80% of the problem in India, of the positive cases, lockdown. They'll become red. Similarly, if you are in each state, all the districts which account for 80% of the positives in that state, close it down. And there was a third criterion. So based on that, they've gone and done this. But the problem is that it's okay for a start. You get data. Once you get data, you better use data. Now we've used data and done very deep analytics and come out with some numbers on how, based on doubling the density of each district, and then overlaid that the supply chain map which I talked about on the same data on the previous database, and we've come up with which are the nearly 45% of districts can be open. No.
So you're breaking again. Mr. Nair, you're breaking again. Hello? 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 You are unmuted, but your voice is breaking. So I would request you to just stop your video so that your sound will be, the bandwidth consumed would be less. So if possible, just stop your video so that hello, Mr. Nair? Hello? 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 Yeah, but we are not able to hear you. Sir, can you just stop your video so that your audio will come out? So the bandwidth used will be less. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that. Hello? Yeah, Mr. Singhania.
Yeah. So we just spoke to Mr. Nair. He's just coming on. Please bear with us. There seems to be we did a test run yesterday. There didn't seem to be any problem, but for some reason the internet is not supporting us. So just give us a few minutes or maybe a minute or so. He's just logging in without video.
Yeah.
I'll take this opportunity to just put a point across to Mr. Joshi. Maybe you can answer this while we wait for Mr. Nair to come, and then, of course, you can present thereafter. So India is a large country with almost 60 million customers in the MSME sector, 30 million customers in the SME sector, almost 100 million plus farmers. How is this all going to affect us? That's one big challenge.
Basically, the way I see it is that what Mr. Nair actually said, I completely agree with him. There cannot be a V-shaped recovery. We will have to put up with different pockets of the economy and then treat each one separately. For example, if we just look at agriculture, so the government actually never shut down the agricultural sector. There was no restriction on several parts of agriculture. To give an example, sugar industry, if you look at the sugar industry, it was functioning all throughout. It was not asked to shut down. So, the farmers who are cutting the sugar cane, bringing it to the sugar factories were producing alcohol, sanitizers, sugar, everything. And they were also selling it. So the agricultural sector is treated very differently. When it comes to industry, again, there is an issue, and we all know that the government is very, very worried about the social distancing and other norms, which are very difficult to observe in an industrial area, and specifically for the large MSME sector which we have, where people kind of do not have that kind of space between to people. So obviously it's a major challenge and worry for the government. Whereas if you look at the financial sector or the services sector, it is possible to work from home. Since you're not manufacturing, you are providing service, it's much easier. I wouldn't say completely possible, but much easier to at least retain a part of your services and continue providing the services from home. This makes services sector a little less prone to failures compared to the industrial sector.
Thank you. I think we'll request Mr. Joshi, if you could speak about, if you want to add something to what Mr. Nair was saying, please do that. And please speak about what you feel is going to be the changes in the behavior patterns. And maybe we can ask Mr. Nair to speak if once he gets reconnected. So on to you, Mr. Atul.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Mr. Nair made an excellent presentation and very, very insightful. And the way he divided the three parts of the corporate health is really insightful. And I think that it's a benchmark for a lot of our members to look at that and see if they fall in which category and what is it that they need to do. But as Mr. Nair also said, this is something which the mankind has not faced for a very, very long time. Probably the first time where we see the whole earth, all the countries at one point in time completely quarantined and not working. Now, this definitely is going to result into some kind of change in people's behavior, people's sentiments, the way people react to a situation, and that would impact the consumption patterns. The change in behavior is going to be disruptive. The disruption would be felt in the economy and specific sectors of the economy, and this would again result into investment opportunities. So one could look at, or rather, perceive where the challenges are or where the opportunities are and use this as an investment opportunity. Or if they see the threat, then they need to cut losses. So I would look at this into four parts. One is what happens immediately on opening up of the lockdown. And I would imagine that there would be a compulsive shopping behavior that would ensue, where people who have been locked in for 35 days or 50 days or 60 days would just want to go out and consume something. And typically this would be FMCG products. We have seen that already in China, but it is very natural for human beings where shopping is considered as a relief, a psychological relief from the stress that you have gone through. So obviously there would be a rush to the FMCG products, whether on the e-commerce sites or in physical format, but there would be some kind of compulsive buying that we would see. So that's the first category. The second one, which is more important to my mind, is the change in the consumption behavior of people. And this, I would divide it into two subcategories. One is the products, change in the consumption behavior towards a product. And the second is change in behavior in the pattern of consumption. In terms of the products, I would just go by illustration and the list could be endless. Say, for example, people would prefer now to buy washing machines because they have gone through the pain of what happens when you don't have domestic help. If you look at the other part, which is the dishwasher's machine, people would actually move away from steel utensils, move into glassware, and then have the dishwashing machines. People would then also look at laptops and not look at the desktops because it's much easier to work from home and do a lot of these things which we are doing now on a laptop rather than a desktop. So these are some of the behavioral consumption changes with respect to a product. This could then be enhanced to, the product of sanitization. People would want to have a lot more sanitizers placed at different parts of the offices, in the factories, at home. So you would see a spurt in the consumption of sanitizers. Masks may become an ordinary rule of the game rather than, somebody only sick would wear a mask. So these are the changes in the product's consumption behavior that one would see. I would also look at the change in the pattern of consumer behavior. And here, one of the things that we have already seen, how close people have got to the Kirana shop owners compared to a mall. So there might be a complete rethinking in getting close to a Kirana shop, and with the advent of some of the big players who are looking at digitizing the Kirana shops, the experience may be completely different from now over the next 1 or 2 years time frame. But I see people moving away from the malls towards the Kirana shop. So that's one change that we would certainly see. People are now getting used to work from home. So we are already seeing people, especially in the IT services, where the demand for office may actually reduce and people may be encouraged to work from home, and compensation being given for that, which is the savings for the company. The third thing I feel people would
Atul bhai, you've gone on mute.
say from restaurants
Yeah.
into the home delivery food chains might do much better. People would avoid going to the restaurants. We might see an increase in nearby tourist places being visited rather than far-flung. So, people would not want to go to, say, for example, Mumbai to Shimla or Mumbai to Darjeeling. But they may prefer Mahabaleshwar or Lonavala, where you can travel on your own and don't need to share a public transport, whether it is an aircraft or a train or bus or whichever medium. People would try and avoid public transportation. So you might see this local tourism developing much better than a distant tourism, which also has an impact in the tourist spots that we see. There would be again changes in the way people would look at. So to that extent, I think automobiles industry may actually gain, because people would avoid public transportation. Then in that case, how do they travel? They would end up buying a two-wheeler, or they might end up buying a four-wheeler. So I do see a revival in the demand of automobiles very quickly, rather than over an extended period of time. So this is one thing which I kind of have a different opinion on automobile sector. I do see a very fast recovery in the auto sector compared to the other sectors. The third part of my talk today is that of prioritization of consumption. People would think through a process as to what is it that I need in the backdrop of this pandemic when I go for consumption. So I think people would place a lot more importance to things like a washing machine over a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler. People would think about making their life more easy when they assume that there is no domestic help, and then put through that consumption pattern. So that's the third part of the impact that I see from behavioral perspective. The fourth part I see is what I call the financial consumers, or we call them as investors. Very rightly, Mr. Nair said one very nice point, and I think we should seriously think about it, is that companies would pursue opportunities for consolidating their market share or increasing their market share. These are the companies who have cash. And I see a lot of activity in that space, specifically for sectors which are into the positive territory. For example, FMCG could be one, specialty chemicals could be another one, and things like that, where people who have cash or investors who have cash would go and pick up companies from the NCLT or from the banks which are into distress. So a lot of distressed buying would happen over the next 1.5 years or 2 years. And I see that as an opportunity for a lot of investors, as well as people who are into banking. They could knock off a lot of NPLs. Another very marked change that would happen is the appetite of the people to look for ensuring their business ups and downs, what you call the business disruption insurance policies. I see a spurt or an appetite coming in from the corporate world, where they would try to ensure business disruptions. So general insurance companies could potentially benefit a lot if they actually develop this product for the present situation or for the future potential. So overall, I see changes happening in the way the people would start consuming products. I see changes in the patterns, whether it is individuals or institutional or even financial investors. I do see a different world going forward. That's from my side, Mr. Singhania.
Thank you, Atul Bhai. I've got Mr. Nair back on. Nair, we took the opportunity while waiting for you to reconnect for Atul Bhai to talk about the behavior changes, and I'll sum up at a later time.
Yeah.
But Mr. Nair, would you like to?
Yes. Thanks. I'm sorry I dropped out.
Just so that we are on the same page, maybe 5
Sure.
and then we'll open
Sure.
up for questions.
Sure. So I heard most of what Atul said, and he brought out some really, really nice points. I want to pick up one of them because that is something which I wanted to cover as a part of my presentation too. I see a major change coming in terms of work from home. It's a serious change. Most people don't realize it. Even large companies like Hindustan Unilever have told their HR department to come up with a list of at least 20% employees who can actually start working from home. And they don't need to have office space. Okay. So my first thought is like this. It is something which is extremely good for the environment. When was the last time you saw clear skies? When is the last time you saw stars at night? Maybe 30 years ago? It doesn't have to be that. Second thing is, it's good for the government. It's cheaper to create broadband highways than real highways. And it will be lower public health costs, low cost of hospitals because there are less road accidents, rail accidents, and so on and so forth. The amount they have to invest on increasing capacity of railways also will local railways, I'm saying in a city like Mumbai, will reduce because if people start working from home, there are a lot of things will change. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but you start seeing that in another 3 years, you'll look back and say, oh my God, so many people are now working from home. And the third stakeholder is going to benefit is the employee, because the employee saves anything between 2 to 3 hours a day, depending on which city you're working in. He spends less on lunch. His health is better. He spends time with his family. At sunset, he's at home. He probably has breakfast and lunch and dinner with his family. And work will not suffer if you have good digital technologies. Now, digital technologies are cheap and plentiful. In fact, we have already started implementing them. We are running a pilot in Delhi so that our 3 offices in Delhi can be shut down and we'll work from home. And then by month of June, all the offices around the world will be working from home. Now, we're also working with some of the companies to establish systems whereby security and ease of work will be possible to help them to move from office to work from home, because that's going to make a big change. See, people think that, oh, how will it be secure? Today, there are more secure systems of using digital technologies than brick walls. Many people in our generation, I mean, your generation and the younger generation also, don't realize that work from home is a very recent phenomenon. It didn't happen 300 years ago. Of course, 400-500 years ago, the first Venetian and Florentine merchants set up offices to keep track of the records and bookkeeping. Then the East India Company and the Admiralty in London set up offices. Then it became about 10-15% of the business, even 19th century, was working in offices and the rest were working from home. It's only at the start of the 20th century, because of the work done by management experts like Frederick Taylor, Gilbreth, etc., who did work on time and motion. The other one worked on productivity. They made it such that office became the place where you do work and productivity matters, and home is where you had leisure and family. Now, with the heat of COVID, those boundaries are going to melt. And you start seeing that work from home will become a norm. Today, most of you will not believe me, but in another year's time, you'll see, oh my God, quite a few companies are moving part of their offices, people work from home. And in 3-4 years' time, you'll find a significant number of people working from home. This is the point I wanted to add to what was already said. But Atul, thank you for that lovely explanation on how behaviors will change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with this, I thank both. And I put the floor open. We've already received some requests, before which I request our president, Mr. Ved. Selvi, would you unmute him if you'd like to say something, sir? After which, Mr. Patel, our very old senior old past president, if you'd like to say something, sir. But Mr. Ved first.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. So, of course, Raj is always wowed us, I would say, and also Atul Bhai. So it's been a great presentation. And yes, these are difficult times. Soon after COVID, there are going to be new ways of doing it. So I've been listening to a lot of video conferences in these last 28 days, and they're basically, it's in the same vein what Mr. Nair just said, what Raj has been saying. And I must say your study is fantastic, because what you've been saying is exactly how the new things are going to shape up, the new industries which will be more relevant than the others. Today we all read about how Reliance got 50,000 crores from Facebook. So obviously they are seeing big value in it. And what Mark Zuckerberg said in his interview is worth noting, that he said that they look at that because Reliance has such a big network, and they look at pumping this network with all the content possible. So that's how they're going to make money, obviously. So this is, as the digital is the way forward. Mr. Nair has been saying it ever since his presidency. He's changed IMC also. He's made a website and all very, very user friendly. And he's always taught us to be digital, and we are thankful to him. And of course, Atul Bhai, who's always been also telling us all the new techniques and new industry and the new age. So we have to follow all these systems. So I think it's really great, and what you've just spoken about. And let's hope that we can all face these times and meet these challenges. And let's hope that, as you said, the government should come out with a good package. So I just want to say one thing. At IMC, we have the representations we made both at the center and the state government. What we have said is we are not asking for dole-outs, because we don't think this government is in a position to give handouts because of their financial position. Although, as we say, let the economy go, let the let deficit go for a toss, and let them print notes and let them give bailouts. But I don't think this government is inclined towards that. So our approach has been, with all of us, including Atul Bhai, that we've been asking them to defer things, to defer all the tax payments and stuff, and also to give us soft loans at the repo rate to tide over this crisis for 1 year. So this has been our approach to both the state and the center. And even if they give us this, I think we can manage. Indian businessmen are very resilient. We will bounce back, and we need just that liquidity. Like Mr. Nair said also about capital, everyone is saying that we should all learn to be debt light and increase our capital. Of course, it's a challenge how you get that capital, because friends and relations are not always willing to give it, but we have to always make it so lucrative for people to want to invest in our businesses. Then only can the equity really come in. So with these few words, I throw the house open. Anant, will you please take over and ask people?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, would you like to ask a question? One moment. Let her just unmute you, Mr. Patel. One moment.
Yeah. Mr. Patel, 1 minute. Let me search for him. Yeah.
It's under Neeta Patel.
Yeah. Yes, sir. You can speak.
Okay. I think, Raj, you made an excellent presentation for so many companies to learn. I hope this message of yours can go to the companies whose representatives are not present. I think your study will help many companies to save themselves from possible disaster. And I appreciate on that. And Atul, of course, you visualized what are the demand going to go up and what is going to happen. I personally feel that companies have to take care of their balance sheets and take actions so that we have minimum loss. Government has likely to make a lot of money with the oil prices going down. And I think they should spare this money to help fast development of industries and bringing economy to the normal situation as early as possible. As far as this virus is concerned, I don't know when it will get settled. It is difficult to presume till vaccine is found, I think. Until then, it goes up and down. For city of Bombay, is going to be terrible to come back to the life. And mind you, It's a commercial capital of the country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Nair,
Yes.
could you, or Mr. Atul Bhai, would you like to respond to these two queries? Can you,
Mr. Nair?
Mr. Nair, please?
Yeah.
Valid
Yes,
point
sir.
that if the government says we won't reduce the oil price but still buy crude at low price and use that difference for giving handouts to SMEs, it will make a huge difference, and this is something they should do. I hope they hear Mr. Patel's suggestion.
We have questions. The next two people, I put them in order. Mr. Mark Fernandez,
Yeah.
then Mr. Jain is raising his hand.
Okay.
So
Mr.
could
Mark
Mr.
Fernandez.
Mark Fernandez. Mr. Fernandez is our chair of the shipping committee, known to almost everybody. Please go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Anand. Welcome to the committee. It was truly wonderful to see Raj and Atul address us and enlighten us. Thanks, Raj, for your in-depth presentation. Your knowledge is really appreciated. Today, we are in a situation which I think the world has never been in. And also, I think the technology is the cause for it. The way I analyze it, because we have mass media, we are able to globally know what's happening, and then the hysteria and the hype is happening. Otherwise, there would not have been such a massive impact. Now, good point, we work from home, we are isolated. But I think, as I discussed yesterday, and many of my colleagues would be there, going down to the basics, to be hygiene as a human being, to be civil when we are around with a number of people. I mean, do we anticipate that none of us will fly in a plane again? Do we anticipate never going into a five-star hotel or the big Indian fat wedding? No, it will continue in time to come. Vaccine will be there. Vaccine will go on. Next, like somebody sent me, COVID-20, showing Chinese eating turtles. So are we prepared to go back to hygiene? Industry is in a turmoil, and Raja really well put it, like everybody going to work from home. But I don't think this is new. 20 years ago, Americans and many of us tried working from home, tried flexi hours, where staff could come and go, but it never worked because you lost the human bonding of an organization. The human bonding of the group of the company was being lost and compromised. That's why we went back, I think, that's my opinion, to coming back to an office place. This is a temporary phenomenon. In my sector, in the shipping sector, it is of great alarm because we impact all sectors. We impact the industry, we impact the economy, we impact the movement of cargo within different countries, which are infected with much greater strength of virus strain compared to India. And we are still to work and keep the economy going. Rightly said that oil prices have become negative because there is no storage capacity for oil, there are no tankers, and there are no takers ultimately. Will the prices come up? Will we go up? It's another $1 million question. Coming to a very small point was, how are we anticipating, I would like Raj to react once this is over or once we have a vaccine? Do we go back to our olden days of throw kachra outside the door, couldn't care less for our hygiene? Or is there actually going to be a mindset? I think this is one of God's biggest way to make the human being realize hygiene and keeping your surroundings clean is of utmost importance. Like I said yesterday, France didn't discover perfumes or colognes, but they made it to cover up their body odor because they couldn't bathe in the crucial winter months. We bathe twice a day in India, or thrice sometimes. So we don't need those colognes, but still we buy them. It's a complete change. With these words, I request Raj or anybody. Thank you. Sorry for the long lecture.
Mr. Naik, unmute yourself because every time Shelby will have to unmute you. So just leave your mute unmuted at all times. Please go ahead.
Would Atul want to answer that question before I do?
See, basically, I see that if you look at the world, we need to divide it into two. The Western world, anyways, probably follows a lot more social hygiene than individual hygiene. But if you look at India, we are high on individual hygiene and low on social hygiene in terms of, throwing the garbage, spitting on the road, etc. Is this going to change the behavior? I don't think, as far as India is concerned, if we look at the majority of the population, I don't think this is going to change. Whereas the upper class and the middle class has already begun after the Swachh Bharat movement of the government. To some extent, some consciousness has come. But is it going to become a culture to become very clean? I think it's a long, long time away, personally speaking. This is my personal opinion.
Thank you. I'd like Mr. Jain to speak, after which I'd like my co-chair Dinesh Joshi to speak, and request all to limit their queries to be very brief so that more people can participate for the next. So I'm talking okay, Mr. R.K. Jain first, please. After that, Mudit bhai, you can also speak because he already is live. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Anand bhai. Good evening to everybody. It is great to see the familiar faces once again. I would like to share with everybody that our company is granted permission by MIDC Collectorate 4 days back to start to resume working because we cater to certain pharma sectors and essential service sector. So
thank you for your input, sir. But can you please say the question?
Ask the question. Yes, my question is to Mr. Nair. That he has put jam and jewelry under the medium category, which recovery is in 2 to 3 quarters. I would like to ask, is it that priority item which will recover in 2 to 3 quarters, sir?
I think so, because gem and jewelry is not purchased by people who have discretionary income, and what they have not been doing for some time, they'll start, and then you'll see that in the months of October to January, March, where people normally buy, you'll see things happening this time also.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, Mudit bhai would like to say.
So I would agree with Brother Ashish's approach of asking for deferment. So if the taxes are abolished in direct and direct, then there need be no stimulus. Velocity of circulation of money will be much faster, leading to greater consumption. Do you think the government will bite the bullet? It's better to build many check dams than one big dam. Mr. Nair, your expert advice or comments?
I 100% agree with you because you brought up an extremely important and valid point. It's better to build many check dams than one big dam and manage those check dams. Leave it to the villagers to manage their check dam. The government will not manage the big dam very well. The other point is about deferment of things, because if you defer these taxes, it leaves more money in the hands of the companies. It leaves money in the hands of people. So whatever is essential to spend will not get deferred. Therefore, the country can actually come up. So both the points are extremely valid, and I only wish they're hearing you in Delhi while you speak.
You're our boss.
Brilliant.
Brother Ashish, please go ahead.
Sir, now I'd like my co-chair Dinesh Joshi. He's also the chairing the international committee, and he's very active in the chamber. I'd like him to pose his question, please. Dinesh.
Thanks, Anand. Good evening, everybody. My question is to Mr. Atul Joshi. So 51,989 crores have been raised by Bombay Stock Exchange via corporate bond, commercial papers, and listing of various SMEs from the 23rd of March to the 20th of April. Even in these tough times, the BSE has been able to come forward to raise so much funds. Going forward for the next, say, 6 months, 1 year, how much, what kind of numbers do you think, the amount would be raised by BSE? Because we have not seen any specific package coming from the government to help the SMEs or the MSMEs. So do you think that the SMEs and MSMEs which are doing well would take this route to raise funds and sustain their businesses?
No, definitely. I think, as Mr. Nair said, they should do it. Question is that two questions. One is that whether the companies will bite the bullet in terms of diluting the promoter's stake and going public, or they would still want to hold on to close to their chest their own shareholding. So that's one question from the corporate side. I think the signal and the writing is on the wall that they must do it, go public, raise the money, bring it, and make the company stronger. As far as the investors are concerned, I think there are two parts to it. One is that there is a lot of demand for good quality shares and bonds. There are not too many good quality bonds available today, which are available to retail investors. So if you have SMEs floating their bonds, which needs to be credit enhanced in some format, and I think BAC is working on that particular platform. So if that equity part plus credit enhanced bonds of SMEs come together, I think I see a very bright future for MSME. But both the questions remain: the appetite of the investors as well as the willingness of the promoters to go public by reducing their stake. But that is the only way to go. So, I'm not able to put a number to it. I would definitely say that's the way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take last three questions from the floor. Manoj Podar, he's part of TexProSim and he's a predecessor of mine at the industry committee. He would like to ask a question, Manoj Bhai, after which I'll take a question from Mr. Jamal, and I'll end with the youngest member out here, Dhaval Savai, who's from the youth wing of BJP as well, and he's very active in the chamber. So on to Manoj Bhai. Yes, sir. Manoj Bhai Podar. So can you hear me?
He's unmute. Sir, you can speak. Mr. Manoj.
No,
you
she
can
has
speak.
she's one.
Yeah. The moment your name was taken.
Patodia.
Okay.
Sorry, I meant Manoj Patodia. I'm very sorry. Manoj Bhai.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So my question is on the oil price to Mr. Nair. This oil price which is falling in the world. How do you see the Middle East and Russia? Because what will be the behavior pattern changes which is going to happen because of the oil prices which are coming down? And the second part is that because of these oil prices coming down, how do you see dollar rupee reacting to it? Thank you.
See, for the last year or so, the output was at least 1 million barrels per day more than the demand. Now the demand has fallen drastically. The only way to make the supply go off is to make high cost producers get out of the business. The high cost producers are the shale oil producers, and they're mostly concentrated in the US, a little bit in Canada, a little bit in Australia, a little bit in many parts of the world, but a big concentration in the US. If the US struggle, the thing is, these shale wells, their life is only about 3 years or so, and they have to quickly make the money in the first 1.5 years because that's when the output is high and it drops. So if they find that there's no way they can touch about $30, they have to close down because their marginal cost is nearly that much. So if you see the last 3 years, the big increase in production of oil from the US has 3 million barrels has come from shale oil. So that's what MBS Saudi Arabia wants to do. Now, Saudi Arabia can afford to push because some of the older wells, on-land wells, their cost of production is $7-8 per barrel. Okay, so even at 20 or 15, they can afford. Russia, the question is not whether their cost of production is low, but if they want to run their country, they need about $60 price, 60. Otherwise, they can't, because half their revenue, GDP is coming from energy. So if that half gets decimated like this, they're in trouble. So that's why they're taking, let's say, panga with Saudi Arabia for not cutting down supplies.
Mr. Jamal the hospitality sector, one of the most sectors most badly affected. You had some query. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Raj. Thank you, Atul Bhai. It was wonderful listening to you, though I did join a bit late. Having said that, I think our industry is going through one of the darkest hours. Like many other industries, we are way from any recovery, because even in today's, after August, after the 20th April relaxation, there is absolutely no hope for the hospitality industry or the hotel industry. They haven't given any opening indications, etc. And who will travel to the hotels and restaurants, etc., is also a big question mark. The larger question, Raj, to you, is the fact that, what will happen to future, conferences, conventions, and large gatherings that are so much integral part of the hospitality industry, travel industry. And when do we see even a restoration of that kind of confidence in people because of the social distancing and everything else? I know vaccine is the only panacea that we are looking forward to. But till such time, do you see any change happening?
Yeah, see, that Jamal, the point is that in the future, hello, sorry, I got cut off. In the future, I don't see 100% of the conventions and exhibitions happening offline like it happens in the past. About 10% will move to the digital side in the next 3 years, guaranteed. Okay, even our own water conference, exhibition which we were planning last year, which didn't happen because of elections, was going to be entirely virtual. So that's going to catch on, but it's only going to eat about 10% of your business. But 90% of it will come back. It has to come back because unlike in the case of work from home, there are so many things which are involved which require face-to-face and physical meetings. So there, the industry, the MICE industry will pick up, I feel. Although if you look at 10 years from now, digital will eat a lot into it.
No, I agree with you. 18 to 24 months are really going to be hard, because every international event globally has got cancelled for now. Whether it's a sporting event, whether it's major exhibitions or events like. So there's really a hard road ahead, because that contributes to about 30 to 40% of the total revenues of the industry, apart from room stays and F&Bs and so on. And of course, we're writing the entire SOP of the hotel and the restaurant itself. That is going to cost us even more. Yeah. Because the way restaurants are going to be looked in the future are going to be way different to what it is today, because you're going to use 50% capacity. You can't use 100% capacity for now. So, and then of course the new norms are going to be expensive, and naturally, how do you meet your revenues? It will be basically through pricing and through and through aggregators and so on.
No, I feel that there will be a lot of innovation in good restaurants. They will make every day an experience.
Yeah,
that's what's going to pay people to come there. It won't be a lovely menu and just the chef coming up and trying to say hello to the hello.
Yes, I'm there.
I'm saying that it won't be a case of just a chef coming and saying hello to the familiar customers, but there will be an attempt to make the restaurant going itself a very great experience, and you'll see those changes happening, because without that, how do you bring the people back?
Yes, I think
so that's where innovation will happen.
Yeah, I think the major innovation, Raj, that we see actually out of all the industry discussions that we've had is the role that technology is going to play in this industry is going to be huge, because reservations to choices to everything is going to be based on technology. The touch and feel is going to go out for everything. So you're not going to be touching the lift buttons, or you're not going to be checking in, signing pen, papers, etc. So a lot of it, that factor will go away, and people will actually use technology for bookings, for even asking for a particular room and particular table in a restaurant. It'll all be technology and payments through apps, no currency, honestly.
Correct. Absolutely.
I'll take the last question from Dhaval Sabai. He's the BJP youth leader, Sabha Hills. Secretary, would you please unmute him? And I request Atul Bhai to answer that, or Mr. Nair to answer that. Go ahead, Dhaval.
Hi, good afternoon all. It was lovely listening to the presentation. and lately it's been in chaos right now across Mahabharat, to be honest. But I'm glad to be a part of this Zoom call meet, and I've got few questions. Two of them, like one would be for Mr. Atul and one would be for Mr. Nair. So the first one for you, Mr. Nair, is what do you think about the disruption in the real estate sector? And will deurbanization be the next big paradigm shift? And my second question for Mr. Atul would be, according to you, which sector would be recommended for someone who's looking to diversify now, post-COVID? Thank you.
See, in a country like, logically, deurbanization is going to be the way things will move. You're very right about it. In a country like India, where there's so much unemployment, while some people will, better off people will move out and use digital technologies to still do work from home and so on and so forth, it will still see a big pool of people from the rural areas to get jobs in the city. And unless this thing is balanced properly, you might end up with a completely wrong mix, or not a good mix in the major metros. So while there is going to be a drift from the metros of the middle and upper middle and rich who can afford to live, let's say, in Goa instead of sitting in Mumbai and actually do all the work effectively, or live in a lovely farmhouse in Panvel and not have to breathe bad air here. It's important that we have more work for people in rural areas, in a rural area itself. This is something the government initiative has to be there. Otherwise, you'll find that the ratio of upper and mid and rich to the let's say the bottom two categories would change in a way that it will create problems for getting jobs in urban areas also.
Then how is it going to affect the real estate for the disruptions now post-COVID?
Sorry?
How would the disruptions in the real estate sector be like after post-COVID? Because now we've realized from people no longer want to have compact houses, but they want to have spacious houses where it's not work from home, but it's going to be work at home.
Correct. So you'll have a phrase called 2 BHKO and not 2 BHK.
Okay.
So you might have a small room, which is the office. And I won't be surprised if people like Ashish will start designing apartments with a small room extra for not a huge one, but small enough to make an office. So 2 BHKO will be an interesting thing that will happen in the future.
Great. And Mr. Atul?
So there are several sectors, as I mentioned, that the preference of the consumers is going to shift. So there are multiple opportunities which are product specifics, and I wouldn't paint any sector as negative, but there would always be sectors with an overhang of negativity, but there could be positive nuances or positive niche areas within them. If you just look at the travel and tourism, or if you just look at the restaurants, I believe that the high-end restaurants will have a problem in terms of survival because of their cost structure. But if you look at the smaller restaurants which are adopting now cash and carry, they will do much better. Again, if you look at the party scenario, people would want to party and they would want exclusivity. Nobody is going to go to, let's say, a 5-star and have a party, or go to a pub and have a party. So areas which are niche, which can offer to a smaller group a very specialized experience within travel and tourism or within entertainment would do very well. Another example could be, for example, a large TV would be more preferred than a small TV. Because if you are going to have, work at home, you're going to spend more time at home, you may expect such a pandemic to come again. You would want to have an entertainment not in the theater, but a theater-like experience at home. So there are those nuances which are bright. And I would say that nothing is as negative as one may perceive. Within negativity, there is always a positivity. You keep a positive eye and you will come upon such an opportunity and then just quickly capitalize it. That's how I would see it.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you, Rajnath.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I just like to say a last few points before we end the seminar. So Mr. Nair has consented to share his PowerPoint presentation. So we will share that with you all since a couple of you have requested for it. So with this, I thank both our speakers for their excellent interaction and all our digital connected. Around 50 odd people were there at max moment who attended this digital session. Mr. Nair spoke that only 1% of people are going to be positively impacted with this COVID, and the balance 99% are going to be affected badly in some form or the other. 70% of the companies will see a revenue dip in excess of 25%. Questions from the floor, of course, catered to various sectors. We had Mr. Jamal talk about the hospitality sector, one of the worst hit sectors. Aviation sector has been very badly hit. Food, retail has been badly hit. Perhaps this change will get us all thinking out of the box and find new products, new solutions. I talked about, the changing behavior patterns, whether it will be the change of the use of product or change of consumption items. He spoke about, the lower end who do not have washing machines to buy washing machines. I personally think the purchase of laptops will go up. People will invest more in technology. People will invest in the broadband. If they don't have, they'll have multiple connections. The usage of sanitizer and PPP equipment will definitely go up. Whether people move towards vegetarianism is a question issue. Whether people are away from meat, the West is aping the East. In NAMO 1, he did two things which I think a lot of us did not connect with. One was Digital India, and the other was Swachh Bharat. Today, I can proudly say that between lockdown 1 and lockdown 2, these are the two things which have really helped to whatever extent in mitigating the spread of the virus. Digital India has allowed people who were in the cash economy to get involved in the digital economy, get connected, get access to finance. Perhaps direct benefit transfer, which started with monetization, is now paying. There has been a lot of stress. There has been a lot of problems, but this has helped people to be connected in these trying times. Swachh Bharat, the fact that thousands of sanitation facilities were built across villages has perhaps helped us to be, strong for the future. And I think while the era is quite bleak and people feel that it will be a while before we come out, but history will tell us that we have always come out victorious. This is a setback. It's a wake-up call for all of us. And I'm very positive for the future. And with this, I'd like to thank both the speakers, Mr. Nair, Mr. Joshi, our IMC team headed by the president, Mr. Mangolkar, Selvi, who's done an excellent job in moderating this and unmuting this call. I'll leave you with just one more thing. We have a couple of webinars planned up. The next one is with Dushyant Dave. On the 27th, you'll be getting the mail. He'll be talking about impact of, COVID as well. But more importantly, just a moment. He'll be talking about, areas where management have to work on, and what will be the focus areas that we need to, as MSMEs, look at. And he'll be talking about the sectors as well. With this, I thank you all for attending this session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And we are